The air was thick with smoke and the silent aftermath of a war that never should have started. On the scorched edge of the ruined city of Nareen, once a lush colony world teeming with life, now shattered by months of fighting, the cries of a single infant pierced through the rubble, sharp, shrill, and haunting. The baby, pale lavender in color, its tiny fists clenched with confusion, lay in the trembling arms of an alien woman crouched behind the broken hull of a collapsed transport. Her skin shimmered with a pale bioluminescence, her golden eyes wide with fear and exhaustion. She was Carrie of the Aileron, a species once known for diplomacy and music, not for being hunted. Her people had been driven from their cities when war erupted between Earth's unified forces and the Aileron Dominion, sparked by misunderstanding, greed, and the long shadow of fear. Her baby, no more than a few weeks old, had been crying for hours. No food, no warmth, no peace. Just fear and the echoes of falling fire. Carrie tried everything, her voice, her hums, her scent glands meant to soothe. Nothing worked. The child cried and cried, each wail louder, drawing the attention of scavengers or worse, soldiers. The last thing she needed now was a human patrol, but fate, cruel and ironic, brought just that. Sergeant Evan Holt didn't expect to find anyone alive in the outer ring. He had been searching for missing civilians, mostly bodies. His team had moved on, assuming all was lost here. But as he turned the corner of the bombed-out corridor, his weapon half lowered, he froze. There she was, an Aileron, with a baby. Training screamed at him to raise his gun. The war had killed too many of his friends, too many civilians, and too many Ailorans. But the baby's cries sliced through that reflex. They weren't the cries of an enemy. They were raw, terrified, innocent. Holt stared at the alien woman. The sight of her hunched form against the ruined cityscape, her shimmering skin catching the faintest of lights, was oddly heartbreaking. The Aileron woman froze, eyes wide with terror. She looked up at him, and for a moment, the only sound was the baby's persistent crying. "I'm not here to hurt you," Holt said, his voice echoing in the vast space. The Aileron didn't understand the words, not exactly, but the tone, the lowered weapon, the hesitation in his stance. She understood that. Slowly, the Aileron woman lowered her head, shielding her child. Her chest heaved in terror, lips moving in silent pleas in her language. Holt took a step closer. "Easy," he said softly, holding up his empty hands. "Don't be afraid. I won't hurt you. I want to help." He edged closer. The child's cries became louder, sharper, almost in pain now. Carrie tried again to soothe him, but she was too weak, her body shaking. Holt knelt beside her, gently reaching toward the infant. She flinched but did not stop him. "May I?" he asked softly, eyes flicking from the child to her. She nodded. He took the child, awkward at first. It had been years since he held his own niece back on Earth, but some instincts don't fade. The baby wriggled, let out another wail, then, strangely, began to settle. Holt began humming, not a song he recognized, just a low, slow melody his mother used to hum when storms frightened him as a child. Carrie watched, stunned, as the tension drained from Holt's face and the alien child snuggled closer to him, its tiny body relaxing. Holt was a soldier, trained to kill, yet here he was, cradling her child with such care that her own maternal instincts seemed to take a back seat. She still couldn't understand what he was saying, but the kindness in his voice, the gentleness in his touch, transcended any language barrier. Slowly, her own fear began to recede, replaced by a fragile hope. To Carrie's astonishment, her child began to quiet. The pulsing in its small cheeks faded from red to soft violet. Tiny eyelids drooped, a hiccup silence. Holt kept humming. For a moment, the only sound was the gentle murmur of his voice and the soft breathing of the baby. The silence stretched, punctuated only by the distant rumble of the city around them. It was a silence filled with unspoken emotions, a truce between soldier and mother. Then, as if awakened by the quiet, the baby stirred, reached out a tiny hand and grasped Holt's finger. The contact was so unexpected, so intimate, that Holt froze. He looked down at the child, then back at Carrie, who was watching them both with wide, hopeful eyes. Holt swallowed, clearing his throat. "You don't have to run," he said, rising to his feet. "You shouldn't be out here alone. Carrie didn't understand his words, but she saw the truth in his eyes. The fear that had gripped her heart eased, replaced by a cautious gratitude. She still didn't trust him completely, but in this moment, she knew he meant her no harm. Holt reached out, tapping his comm unit. "Delta 3 to command," he said, his voice low. "Request immediate assistance. We have a possible civilian survivor, female aileron, possibly injured, along with infant. Request medical and security." Repeat, "We have a possible civilian survivor, female aileron, possibly injured, along with an infant. Request medical and security." As he turned to leave, he paused, glancing back at Carrie. "Stay here," he said softly, "and try to get some rest. Help is on the way." She watched him go, her gaze lingering on the spot where he disappeared. In the distance, the whine of a gunship broke the eerie silence. Relief, tinged with uncertainty, flooded her. Within minutes, a dropship hovered above them, engines humming. More soldiers arrived, rifles ready, but paused when they saw Holt, a human, holding an alien baby with the tenderness of a father. "What the hell happened here?" one of them asked, his voice laced with surprise. "Cease fire," Holt said simply. "Right here, right now." They took Carrie and her baby aboard, scanning for injuries. Medical drones tended to her bruises. The child was given milk substitute that somehow calmed its small, trembling body. Carrie kept looking at Holt, unsure whether she was grateful or terrified. Maybe both, but she no longer saw him as a shadow in armor. He had become something else, a bridge. News of the encounter spread quickly. In a war where every skirmish widened the chasm between two civilizations, this moment, a human soldier comforting an alien infant, became a symbol. On both sides, it made people pause, question, hope. In the days that followed, Carrie and her baby were relocated to a civilian safe zone where survivors from both species began to coexist. Cautiously, Holt visited often. The baby, whom Carrie named Elian, a word meaning peace reborn, would always stop crying when Holt walked into the room. They became something like family. It wasn't easy. The war had left scars on both sides, on both planets. But as the years passed, the memory of that day on the outskirts of Naroon, the image of a human soldier kneeling beside an alien mother, holding her crying child, became a beacon. Years later, after the war ended, a monument was built on the edge of Nareen, not of a general or a battle, but of a human soldier kneeling beside an alien woman, cradling a child. Below it, an inscription in both languages. "When we saw the child not as alien, but as ours, everything changed." And in the heart of that monument, a space where flowers could be laid, where memories could be shared, and where the story of Carrie, Eliana, and Holt could live on, reminding everyone that sometimes it takes one small step, one moment of connection to change everything.